Smile, you're on candid camera.
All right. Zach, do you want to kick things off a little bit?
Sure. So, for those of you who may not know them, we have Madison Francis and Antonio Kitchens, who are both recent graduates of our music ed program. Madison is a choral music educator, and Antonio is a instrumental music educator. And we'll turn it over to them to kind of give a background about where they're teaching now and what they're doing. So, whichever of you wants to start, you may.
Hi everyone. Again, my name is Antonio. So I graduated last year around the beginning of the pandemic, actually. So while I was student teaching is when we started becoming virtual. And then near my second placement, I went virtual and been virtual since. During that time, I applied around to the different schools around and got hired at Lincoln Center the Arts Middle School. So that's still pretty close on the east side of Milwaukee. Um, it's been virtual until now. So actually, I start spring break today. And then when we come back, the teachers are in person for a week. And then after that, the students are back in person. But it's still a split situation now. So I'll be teaching virtually and in person at the same time for a while. So it's a lot of change happening for me at this time, but I'm still enjoying it.
Okay, and I'm actually teaching general music right now, but I went for choral, but I'm at Hartford University, which is right on UWM's campus, and I am also at Stewart Elementary up on the north side right now. So I'm also in the Milwaukee Public School District, so we're going back virtual after spring break, or face-to-face. Still doing virtual though, so kind of the same situation as Antonio. So exciting stuff, lots of stuff changing, but it's all good and exciting. And I can't wait to meet the kids. So I started in the fall. So I'm a first year teacher too. So exciting.
Awesome. So, do we want to just kick it off with questions that anybody may have for them of their experience of starting off their first year's teaching?
I'm going to take privilege and start. So I'm curious for both of you why you chose to apply to Milwaukee Public Schools in particular. And was it your first choice of job to accept?
For me, I went to Milwaukee Public Schools growing up, so I know the culture and the climate of it as well as what I would be expecting. I enjoy going through the school, and it's, of course, MPS is mostly minority students, so I knew exactly who I'll be impacting primarily through my education. And I'm sorry, the second question.
Was it your first choice when you were applying for positions? Was there were there other positions that you were really hoping you might get?
I definitely was my first choice. I also do military in the area, so I wanted to stay close by. So it was definitely my first choice of schooling was MPS.
It was my first choice too. I really wanted to work in the Milwaukee Public School District. I didn't go there as a student, but I really liked the area and I was comfortable with it. I've observed it all through college. And so that's what I was comfortable with doing. I personally would choose choral over general, but I wanted to be in the district. So yeah.
Okay, I'll ask kind of like the stereotypical question you always ask first year teachers, but what's something you wish you knew or you learned in college that ended up being kind of important in your first year of teaching?
I was waiting on that question. One thing I've noticed that was really impactful, actually, especially in our music education, like the training that you're receiving now, is all of the different cultures that you're learning about and just being open-minded and differentiated instruction that applies even in your with working at a school with your different coworkers. So a lot of you are younger and you will be a different perspective on a lot of conversations at the school, which I didn't realize going into school. I'm just like, oh, this is normal. And then they're just like, yeah, just give a student an instrument and they'll play it, or just tell them to sing that. And you're like, wait, it doesn't just work that way. Everyone's different. So all of the different training you're getting and perspectives is going to be extremely beneficial in your first year teaching, just staying open-minded.
I like that, Antonio. Yeah, so I was gonna say just how much collaboration happens between all of the other teachers. Like, I didn't think that I would be like close friends with my coworkers, and you, especially virtually, like you just get to know each other. You're having interactions with them, and so many different meetings that you wouldn't be having face to face. So, yeah, I really like the open-minded thing too. So I don't know, just how much you work with your coworkers is really important and something that I wasn't expecting.
Are you folks the only music teachers in your schools?
So at LCA, it's 3 music teachers. I'm the band director, there's a choir director, and there is an orchestra director. So there's 3 of us at the middle school level. And then we also offer a general music course that we each teach. It's one of the only middle schools in Milwaukee that offers all 3 of those arts, as well as dance and actual art and design. So it's a lot of art going on at that school.
I'm the only teacher at both of the schools, but there's, once again, more collaboration throughout the whole district. Like Milwaukee Public School, like we have meetings with all the other music teachers, like general music teachers, through like our supervisors and the music department and stuff. So it's like I am by myself at like the only music person at the school, but there's so much going on throughout the district, so it doesn't feel like I'm by myself.
Can you each talk a little bit about how often you see your students and how, if that's changing with the move back to in-person, what you know about how that schedule is going to change?
For my school, I teach like an A and B day type of school. So on Mondays and Thursdays, I have my A students, and Tuesdays and Fridays, I have my B students. And on Wednesdays, initially I had C students, which were once a week general music students at Lincoln. So I will see my students twice a week. And now Wednesdays are asynchronous, so I don't have a class on Wednesdays. It's just Tuesday. It's just those 2 groups of students, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And going back into person, it will still be the same schedule, except I'll have students in person as well as having them virtual. So it'll be still same days, but in person now and all day. And as well as for my scheduling at Lincoln, it was block scheduling, which is like 90-minute classes for those like about 4 or 5 90-minute classes. Now we're going back to period scheduling, which is like 7 periods, which is a typical high school setup. So that's changing as well.
Originally, I was just seeing the students for about 30 minutes once a week virtually, just because I was at the 2 schools. But now a lot of stuff is changing with my schedule. At the one school, I'm going to be seeing the students twice a week. And then the other school, I'm going to be teaching virtually on that Wednesday to all of the students that are virtual. So that day is like packed for me. And then the students that are face to face, the other 2 days that I'm there, I'm just going to be working with them. So I'll just have to focus on those face to face kids rather than have to worry about doing the virtual and face to face. So I think I'm going to like that schedule a little better at that school versus the other school. It's going to be double the work now at both schools, but kind of in different ways. So, but it'll be completely different since, you know, I'll be seeing a lot of the kids face to face.
I have a question for Madison. So I've always kind of wondered what it's like to travel between two schools, and I've known several teachers that do that. What is like your experience with that? Like, does it make it kind of harder because it's two different schools of two different like you were just saying like about the schedule, it's like totally different. Like, what is kind of your experience with traveling?
Well, since I've been virtual, I live in Milwaukee, like downtown Milwaukee, and so it's like a 10-minute drive to Hartford. So I've been going there virtually, but I've been working from home for Stuart because I don't want to do the drive. But obviously, I'm gonna have to do that now. That's okay though. But it's okay. Like I really like the students. Like I'm there for the students, so having more is not an issue. I can use the same lessons at both schools. So it's really okay. I don't mind it that much. It would be a lot easier for grading. That's the only thing. Grading, I'm just gonna say, is the worst thing about being a teacher. I hate it so much. But you know, having over 700 students, almost 800 students, it's just kind of a lot during that week. But other than that, it's really okay. You just have to get used to that schedule and just like be flexible. And, you know, once you get used to it and get, you know, the routine, it's really not that bad. I'm okay with it. So
Madison, do you have pretty similar supplies and instruments and things? I know for a lot of people, sometimes you'll have one school that's got more stuff than the other. And so it depends on where you plan your lessons. The trunk of my car often had several things in it that I took from the school that had stuff to the one that didn't have as much stuff. And so there was always this amount of things in my trunk that kind of move back and forth with me. I don't know whether you're going to encounter that or not.
yeah, it's kind of weird because, well, they're saying like you can, like, it's not, COVID's not being spread through material things, but then they're like, oh, you need to make sure that you clean them and all of that. So I'm not sure how much I'm going to be doing that. But the one school's ordering some instruments for me. But yeah, there's a few different things at each school. The one school, I don't even have a classroom, so I'd be a traveling music teacher regardless. And the other school, just because they don't want the students going in the hallways as much, I'm going to be traveling at Hartford too, just because it'll be easier for the students. And so it'll look completely different without the pandemic. So I don't know. It's weird right now because I don't know what it's like with that aspect yet. So
I would like to ask a question to all of you and ask, are there any big fears you have right now about teaching that we can probably help alleviate a little bit? A lot of you are just like, oh my goodness, listening to
Yeah, I
our
have a
story.
big one.
Okay.
Okay, well, besides being afraid of the students, which hopefully I'll get over, I'm worried that it's going to be too much work. Like, do you guys have time during the day at school to plan lessons, or
That's
is
a
that
great
like
question.
nighttime weekend work? Do you have,
That's an awesome question.
does it feel overwhelming?
I really like that question a lot because I have my friend that I graduated from, Tyler Kraft. He also graduated as an alumni here. He teaches in a different district than Madison. So I communicate with him a lot to hear how his side of the story is. And it really, every school is different. Every school and your day-to-day period schedule is different. So for me, right now virtually we have a meeting at like 8:45, and then from 9 to 9:50 is my prep. So I have built-in prep every day, and then from there I do a lot of my planning at night and during the prep to just make sure it's all ready. But luckily for me at my school, for example, all my students are beginners. 6th, 7th, and 8th are beginners. So the lessons can be pretty much similar with minor changes based on their grade level, which cuts down on planning as well as just locating resources that I can use during that class. For a band setting, it becomes more of a routine. You know, you start class, you get your instruments, you do a warm up, and eventually your planning cuts down. You know what you're doing, and plus you will be able to reuse lessons in different ways. So planning, don't worry too much about that and spending a lot of time at the end of the day going over lessons, because you'll have enough time to do it. It just wouldn't be stressful. As well for the kids virtually right now, they're not bad. Don't be scared of the kids. They're very energetic individuals, and as long as you show them that you're caring and honest, honesty goes a long way with the children. Like if they see my new face and I'm very honest with them, and then they become honest and are nicer than I see them in other places. So don't worry about that either right now.
For lesson planning for me at the beginning of the school year, I spent a lot of nights, lesson planning. I do have prep during the day virtually, and I do have time once we're doing the hybrid version too. But once you get into that routine, you're going to get better at it. You're going to, do it more often, and you'll just get used to it. At the beginning of the school year, I hated lesson planning just because it took up, my evening. But once I got used to it, then I had my evenings open, and you can take time to do stuff yourself too. But the kids, just you're going to be able to build a rapport with them. Every teacher is different. I'm different from Antonio, who's different from all of you and all of our other coworkers. And so I think they're used to that. None of my coworkers teach the same way, and they're gonna, like you because you're young and, you can relate to them, just becoming like, I was just a student, and I tell them that all the time. I was like, I was a student during the pandemic, so I get it. And, I think that they understand that, and it's really easy to, build that relationship with them once you're there.
I also have a question, if you guys don't mind. So since this is your first job, did you guys inherit a curriculum, or did you guys have to start one from scratch? Because that's one of my biggest fears. I get to a job and it's I'm the first one there, so I got to create something from ground up. So this is my question.
My experience was a little bit more unique than most of yours will be. From my experience, the band director, Reese, left, I believe, in the middle or almost right away at the end. So when I got there, the room was still mostly a mess for me. I had to clean it up, and then I didn't have any of his curriculum. I could piece things together, but a lot of that, I reached out to other coworkers in the district that were teaching before me longer and asked, what do you start with? Okay, we're virtual, so I'll teach them about instruments. And then I just started planning that way, a broader scope and sequence. You'll hear about that a lot, just having your overall year planned. That helps a lot. And then reaching out to your coworkers. What works for you? What do you usually go to after this? And then connecting it to your standards. So I had to make mine pretty much from the ground up when I got there, but it's not too difficult. I also have 3 mentors somehow from the district level, and then one that just checks on my teaching, and it's you get a lot of support. A lot of support's given to you.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same situation. I really have one, but it's kind of nice. They give you ideas of what you should do, for general music at least. They have something written up, but you do not need to follow it. And so, if I needed help on something, I would look at that, especially towards the beginning of my teaching. I used it a lot more, but now I've been, going off it more, taking more of my ideas, which I really like. And also with the not having really a planned curriculum, you can kind of take the students' opinions and ask them what they want to do, which is really nice. Just making sure that you get in those standards are really nice. We use Wisconsin standards, and I know we used the other one when we were in college. So just getting used to those ones, those standards were a little different than what we used. But other than that, I really like, writing it up, but next year I'm going to be able to do the same thing that I did this year. So lesson planning will be a lot less than it was this year too. So
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
I have a question, if that's okay. I know it's probably going to be more specific to like MPS because that's where you both are, but do you have any insight on like the interview process? Like what are things that they end up asking you? Is there anything that like you really need to bring to the interview process at all?
Just having honestly a strong sense of yourself and a philosophy of what you're teaching that will help you base your questions. Knowing what goal or direction you see the program going into after you receive the job, your understanding of standards and how you'll implement them. A lot of philosophy questions, goal questions about the standards in teaching, as well as compatibility with the students. They're also gauging your personality in the interview. So you want to be just yourself, not a robot and see like you're just stiff and know what you're going, but you'll be fine as long as you have those philosophies and ideologies behind you.
yeah, pretty much what Antonia said. I think like the only other thing is like will ask you like, what are you looking for in your district? So they want to see, are you like a good fit for them, but are they a good fit for you too? So it goes both ways. So just all of that stuff you can keep in mind, I guess. When I went through my interviews, I guess like I did them all virtually, but I wrote down the questions afterwards, and wrote down answers too, so that like I could be thinking about it later for other interviews and all of that. So I think that's something for me, like I need to write stuff down. So that's something that helped me personally.
And just practicing, taking your time to take responses. It doesn't have to be, how are you doing? Great. It's just like really quick response. It can be, okay, give me a second to think about that, or just a thoughtful response is better, as well as asking them questions about their perspective for you. I definitely ask questions from my interview. What do you want out of me or expect out of me? And what do you want out of the program yourself? That gauges well for you.
We do mock interviews during the student teaching as part of the seminar process. And one of the things I do encourage people to do even is to have paper at your interview, because sometimes people will ask multi-part questions. And so you just quick jot either the question down for yourself or things that you think of right away that you want to include in your answer, so that you don't lose track of them, kind of as you're going along. So we will practice those strategies too with people who have done interviewing, including for the last 2 semesters, we've been able to invite Sherry Garcia, who's the new MPS music supervisor, to be part of that team of people doing the interviewing as well. So we do get you a little bit of practice, at least in that process.
And just something else to think about, like they're people too. Like if you're interviewing like with like Miss Garcia and you're going to be working in MPS, like you're going to be working with her in the future, and just like know that they're a person. Like it's not that as scary as it seems. And I think the mock interviews really helped me because like, I had it with, my teachers, and like I know them really well. And so just, it's not as scary as it seems, at least for me.
Awesome. Thank you.
So we've been covering a lot of like classroom management. So how are the both of you like handling management both like virtually, and how you think that may shift once you go back more into a hybrid model?
So awesome question, Zach. Well, for virtual first, this is unique for all the kids and students. So initially, classroom management wasn't a problem, it was participation. The students wouldn't act up if they're not talking or their camera's not on. So for MPS, they didn't require students to have their cameras on because of where they're at home. Anything could happen at home. They had to log on to the Meet. They were encouraged to respond, but if they don't, they didn't. I did have incidents in class where the students were typing in a chat, like within 1 minute, just typing back to each other, calling each other weird for some reason. They're kids. So I'm just like, don't just turn the chat off. Just encourage them to get back on topic and don't entertain non-class conversations. That usually works, but in person, I've heard multiple stories from my previous teachers at my school of how kids can be rowdy at times. I think it's important when you first start is to, of course, establish those rules and classroom expectations and behaviors. I know my last teacher, they would run around the room. I don't know if they were told not to immediately from the start or just let known that this will not be tolerated, but just having that already in place will help alleviate some of those classroom management problems. It won't fix all of them, but it'll at least get you started on the right foot. I'm optimistic, as we'll see in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in, obviously the same situation as Antonio. Some kid will swear or, like say something to another kid and, it's like, okay, let's calm down, get back on topic. That happens sometimes, like not very often though, like very rare. And, I'm a very optimistic person too, like Antonio. So I'm just, going to have to build rapport, start kind of from the beginning, build those classroom expectations. And, being face-to-face is going to be very different from virtual, and they haven't met me face-to-face. And so we're going to have to take like that first week or two just to, build that face-to-face relationship and, explain the expectations. So, yeah.
What is like your best memory with your students so far?
At my school, my sixth graders, at least, well, it's really interesting as well. Teaching sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, they each have their own distinct personalities virtually, which I don't know how they were able to show me that, but the sixth graders are very optimistic and they want to learn how to do stuff and they're excited for middle school. Seventh graders are like the cool ones. They don't turn their cameras on. They're kind of quiet. And the eighth graders are like, I'm ready to graduate. I'm an adult. So those are interesting things to notice. But you will have students that are very ahead of their David. You'll have students that are very ahead of their time. I remember my sixth grader who we were having conversations about race. Of course, this has been happening a lot in the US. And her response as a sixth grader was, I just don't understand why this is happening. We're all the same person. Doesn't matter how you look or your gender and things like this. I'm like, just excited hearing that from a sixth grader. She's like, I hope this changes. And like, it will. As a sixth grader, you're already having these thoughts. And most of you agree, you're going to change the times. Don't worry. Like, that just made me feel good as an educator, knowing that the youth are already understanding what's going on in the world and I can identify what they want out of it. That made me feel like I was doing something good.
For me, I love those little moments before and after class when you can just like chat with the kids and see how they're doing, or they want to share something exciting, like what are you doing for spring break, or and just having goofy conversations. My fourth graders just like love Minecraft, and like we'll just talk about that all the time. And but also there's so many good moments. I love when they show like their music creativity or they're performing. And, you know, we're using Seesaw for the little ones and K through second. And so like getting a video of them singing one of the songs we did in class, or getting a creation in Soundtrap or BandLab from one of the older kids, and, you know, seeing that like I'm making an impact and seeing my little musicians showing their creativity and performing, it just like makes everything, all of the stress, you know, of the pandemic go away. And it's like, you know, you see beauty in like all of their creativity. It's like the most amazing thing.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that. That's right. Like seeing them do something that you taught is like the most rewarding experience ever. When I showed my sixth graders a rhythm and they can clap the rhythm out, and I'm like, you learned that from me? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, we're making progress. It just seems, it's just a rewarding experience after that.
I kind of have a question about where like, and it kind of, it's more for Antonio, or if Madison, if you have to add anything to this. So like being a person of color, like do your students see you more like, do they see you like, oh, like this is someone that looks like me, and this is they can probably be someone that I can be in the future. Do you have something experience like that, Antonio? And Madison, do you have something to add as well? Like not being a person of color, just like, do your students see that, or do they treat you differently? Because like, I've thought about like, maybe I do want to teach in the South Side where there's a lot of Hispanics, and maybe they can see me as someone they can like look up to, just because, you know, I have the same skin color as them. So
First, that's an awesome question. Also, it's amazing that that's a good thing to consider. As you know, yes, race is extremely important in America as of right now, especially with everything that's being portrayed on the media and all the acts of violence that are happening. The students are observing that as well. But also there is that aspect of seeing yourself in a teacher. So identifying with the teacher based on their race, that is something that does happen, especially with the students. So being a person of color at my school, my students do immediately connect with me based on, for example, their vernacular, the things that they say in their dialect. So sometimes grammar, for example, can be a huge thing in the African-American community. I, for one, believe that grammar doesn't dictate your intelligence. So if a student is saying something like, I ain't finna do that, I'm not gonna sit there, you are not going to do that, and correct them and change it. I'm just gonna say, okay, well, why not? And just keep moving on and just reaffirm them that things will they're doing what they can do. And for me also, my students have told me that they're just happy to have a Black teacher that they can connect to in different ways. That doesn't mean that being a Caucasian teacher or Hispanic teacher that you're not going to be able to connect with your students, but you will and should take that next step to understand their culture and background and how they grew up, and they will respect you for that regardless of your race. Just knowing their background, it helps them connect with you more.
I'm not sure if I have anything to add right now, but that was a really good question, David.
that's all right. But
I know,
yeah,
sorry, David, what were you saying?
I just like, have you felt like your students have said anything? Like not you personally to them, or do you feel like you get a certain reaction from your students?
Yes, I definitely do receive a different side of my students. A lot of them they speak more comfortably with me and tell me how they're feeling and what's going on. Students also may tend, honestly, to really revert to themselves and say, you'll never understand how I feel. That may happen in your career, especially if you teach an MPS school. It's best to explain that you don't know exactly what happened, but you would like to learn or hear more about it. Just showing that you care about their lives and culture. It's insane. Like, you learn about culture and stuff, but it's a huge part in educating. That is extremely important. At my school, I know we do have meetings a lot about culture and climate and race and how to just change your perspective and be unbiased. So just being aware of that in your teaching, regardless of who you are, is going to help you.
We have a couple of people who graduated not so terribly long ago, or one of them, it's been probably 5 years, I think. They're both white teachers, but they both speak Spanish, and they're in schools where there are bilingual classrooms. And both of them I know have commented and have noticed when they can change over and deliver instruction in Spanish, that definitely, makes that instant connection with the kids in a way that, personally being a white woman, they can't necessarily, but the language helps to bridge that cultural connection for them also. So for some of you that have some Spanish language background, it's something I always encourage you to continue developing, because we have a huge developing bilingual population, and so that alone also is a key connective point.
On a lighter note, what's like your favorite pop music or like TV music, like popular music that you guys have taught, if you guys have done that yet?
I start each class with a song for me virtually. It's just, I try to use popular songs as much as possible. I did, for a portion of time, use jazz music, starting especially like older artists like Ella Fitzgerald. We're listening to her. My students call jazz music trumpet music now and think that's all I listen to, but they enjoy learning different they enjoy learning about different genres, and if you can find a way to incorporate a pop song in your lessons, you'll be automatically the cool teacher. Like, you listen to this? What? So there's that.
I've done a few things. We've looked at music from that came from the Black community, and so we did like a whole 3-week lesson on that. And actually recently we did jazz, rock, and hip hop, and the kids were super into, I pulled up live videos of different people singing and playing instruments, and the students get really into that. They love watching videos. It doesn't matter what it is, but they just love it. And I also have done some activities where the students share their favorite song, and we listen to it, and then we talk about the musical elements of it, and then the kids guess who said that was their favorite song. So I've definitely incorporated what the kids are interested in, and kind of made games out of it, which they really enjoyed that.
How have you two been able to create relationships with your students' parents and get kind of support from the parents?
For me, a lot of that came from meeting the parents at parent-teacher conferences initially. They were just interested in knowing how their student was doing virtually, and then they'll see me, a young face, they're like, oh, hello, and it's nice to meet you, this is how your student's doing. I'm new to the district, I'm new to school, I may be staying next year, and they're just excited to just know what to expect for their student in this field of music. I do know I met some parents that are very interesting. They want their kids to succeed, and they'll be right there on Zoom with them in the background, almost as a big sister, big brother. I met parents that told me, my child will not play that instrument, they're going to play this instrument. So I met the whole spectrum of parents and dealt with them all, but you'll mostly meet nice parents. I didn't graduate, even though we graduated last year, we didn't walk the stage. So sometimes I still forget, oh yeah, I finished. And then you have parents like, hello, Mr. Kitchens. They're just really nice because you're an educator. And that's a unique thing I noticed as well. So most parents are going to mostly be nice to you just because you're choosing to do education and impact their child's lives.
Yeah, I've gotten to know parents through parent teacher conferences too, but at my school, not that's parents don't really attend them as much, and so I've had to make a lot of phone calls too, and so I've built some relationships through that. They'll pop in after class and say hi. You do have some parents that are like very supportive of music and they love it, and then there's some that might not like it at all, and I respect that. You don't need to like music, and general music, the kids have to take it regardless, and so it's not an option. And so I just say, I respect it. Obviously I don't feel the same way, and then they get to know more of your side as you communicate too. So it's different from every parent, but it's okay. And you just, like I said, you have to respect their opinion too, and then they'll be more respectful of you, who you are, I guess.
I have a follow-up question for all of you. Again, what year are each of you?
I'm junior, so student teaching next spring.
Yeah, most of us are on the junior level, and then Sophia is a sophomore.
So is Joe.
Do
Yes.
you have any more concerns right now or fears that we can hopefully help with?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Hi, Lauren.
Hi. Do you guys have any students with disabilities, and how do you incorporate them in your class?
So far, since it's been virtual, it's difficult still to always differentiate your lessons as much as possible. But yes, I do have a large portion of students that are special education, and they require different requirements. You will take a course eventually on IEPs and requirements in that aspects, but a lot of the time students will have their own unique, they'll have a plan that they're supposed to follow in their class, what their goal is, and just trying to incorporate that with your lessons for them. Give me a second to rethink of that answer. Go ahead, Madison.
It sounds like it's like if every student individually has a plan, to me that sounds like that's like 30 lessons for
Not that aspect. Go ahead, Madison. I'm sorry.
I think that music, it's easy to make a lot of accommodations. It's just like you have to be flexible if you're in music. There's multiple ways you can teach the same thing, and being virtual too, you have to give all those options. So like, okay, either you do this or you do this. You give them options to do. Like I said, I feel like easy to make accommodations in music, especially once we're face to face too. I think it'll be easier too. And I'm not sure how much virtually you all will be teaching, since you're, it's still a few years away, but yeah.
When you say that every student has a plan, and that IEP plan covers their entire education. So there might be goals in there that are specifically targeted towards math or towards reading or other subject areas that, I had a number of students who had IEPs that needed no accommodations for music. Music was the one area where they could do everything the same way that everybody else did. So just having an IEP doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to require accommodations. And we'll talk more about the idea of universal design and trying to just create your lessons so that you're automatically accommodating most of your students with just the way that you're planning your teaching. And that helps a lot along the way too.
I just got a quick question. What types of technology are you integrating into your classrooms, or what does the school provide for you guys? What types of technology do they provide for you to make the learning environment more efficient?
smart board that's in my room. But besides the Chromebook, they provided us a Verizon Chromebook that we use. And as well as going into this virtual environment, they offered numerous PDs, ample PDs on ample ideas for you, like Pear Deck and Jamboards. And we have music PDs in themselves. So there's district PDs, there's music PDs, there's band lab stuff. There's all, they offer a lot of support that way. And as well as like the normal equipment from my class would be the instruments themselves and space. But other than that, that's just about it for me.
And MPS uses curriculum that's called Quaver Music. I don't know how much you use that, Antonio, but that's what a lot of the general teachers use, K through 8, which is what I do. And so Quaver, it's, some people are like, I hate Quaver, but I think it's so cool because I could just make like slides and I can incorporate other stuff from outside. So like we can use whatever we want. I can show them other music apps like BandLab or Soundtrap or whatever. But the Quaver is really nice because there's just a bunch of already soundtracks or games and, you know, stuff that are interactive online that I can use. I loved using it virtually. I'm not sure how much I'm going to use it, obviously, once we're face to face. It'll be hard to do like some of the games if the kids have to, you know, touch the screen or whatever. So, but it'll work out. I really like Quaver, but I know some people don't, which is okay.
It's Quaver's like geared towards, was it pre to 8th grade? I just don't use it for my 6th to 8th graders. I don't think they'll be as engaged in it because at that age they're more like, I'm an adult. Is this for kids? I'm not a kid, and that's just their mentality at that age. They also provided us smart music as well, though, as well as Quaver. So they gave us an option between smart music and Quaver. And since my students are all beginners, smart music is not optimal just yet because they don't have their instruments, but I plan on using that as a big resource in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I use a lot more of like my own ideas for the older kids for sure, rather than Quaver music. But like I said, it does have some like really cool stuff that like they do get into. So, you know, you just kind of gotta see what the kids like, and if like some things don't work, you know, sometimes, and that's okay. So yeah.
Awesome. I know a lot of us have to get to ensembles, rehearsal and stuff. So thank you, Madison and Antonio, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I think we all gained some very valuable insight and thoughts from both of you and your experiences in your first years teaching.